Welcome back. The imposition of the consumption tax by the Prime Minister is an on-again, off-again issue. Last Friday, it was reported in the prestigious Nikkei that the Prime Minister would, in fact, withhold implementing the consumption tax, and he has issued some denials since then. Michael, this is on-again, off-again. Do we have a schizophrenia situation going on here?
Well, it's a very strange bipolar situation because we are seeing denial, possible balloons being floated, and this has been going on for several months, but it really, absolutely everything hit the fan this weekend with the Nikkei report. Because the Nikkei report was based on its contacts within the bureaucracy, that it had picked up from various ministries, people going around from the Conte, going and saying, look, he's going to delay it. Get yourselves ready for it.
Right.
And somebody who learned this leaked it to the press.
Well, somebody, I wonder who could it be of all of the newspapers. Maybe
what
Nikkei?
ministry could possibly be interested in trying to stop the delay of the consumption tax? Starts with the letter F, I think.
Yes, it does.
Finance hates this with a passion. And when they got a secret, and I'm sure they did, that he was indeed going to delay the rise of the consumption tax, thereby putting off the day that Japan gets on the way toward fiscal balance and fiscal sanity. When that happened, I'm sure it was very easy for the finance ministry bureaucrat who learned it to suddenly call his friend at the Nikkei.
Right.
And then what was really weird was what happened after that.
Well, we've been watching this issue for the last couple of months, trying to guess which way it's going. It's going to go this way or that way. I actually heard the Prime Minister speak twice on Friday, and in neither opportunity did he talk about the withholding of the implementation of the consumption tax. And so when this report came out, I actually heard about it on Saturday. I was shocked and rocked off my heels because this is a huge issue, and before it is actually published, you're going to get some signals from that, and this was totally out of the blue.
It's in a nexus of all kinds of interlocked different decisions, and the most important of which is whether or not to have a double election.
Right.
And he has stated that he does not even think of the first letter, or in this case in Japanese, I have not thought of the ka of kaisan.
Okay.
I have not even thought of that in terms of dissolving the Diet. I have no concept of a double election. And yet, the basic deal that everyone talks about is if you delay the consumption tax rise, there has to be a House of Representatives election. You have to dissolve the Diet. You have to put the decision to the voters.
Right.
And so the Nikkei's report immediately, when that came out and said he's going to do it, then all the people who are some, I guess, not in the loop inside the LDP, et cetera, started saying, no, that the report's wrong. That we're not going to be going to double election. We're not going to be delaying the imposition of a higher tax rate. Everything's going according to plan.
Right. This is somewhat embarrassing to the Prime Minister and also to the Nikkei, isn't it?
Well, no, that was on Monday. Now, if you look at today's headlines, when we're taping this, they all say, no, Nikkei was right.
Right.
He's not going to let the tax rise.
It's very strange how that all rolled out. It was announced that the Prime Minister has announced, or he has sent a correspondence to his inner team that he will delay the consumption tax. And then when they were called to task on it, they didn't quite deny it, but they didn't actually backtrack either. They said, no, that communication wasn't distributed, no, we're not going to withhold raising the consumption tax.
Well, the thing is, he had set in Diet session a very high mark.
Sure.
He set up he said, I will delay the consumption tax rise only if there is a natural disaster on the level of the Tohoku earthquake, which, since it was the largest earthquake in Japanese history, means never.
Right.
Then the other one was a shock to the international system on the level of the collapse of Lehman Brothers. Other than that, the tax will go through. What we have now...
A lot of wiggle room there, isn't there?
He said, absolutely, those are my
parameters.
standards.
That's right.
What he's got is a major set of earthquakes in Kumamoto, the 7.0 or 6.9 in terms of magnitude earthquakes, a pair of them that have caused 49 deaths and extensive damage in those areas. And he has a world where the economic growth rates in most countries are very low and everything's sluggish and things are not going well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the same as his standard? No way. But it looks as though he's going to delay the tax.
Right. Right. Today, it does look like that. And
it looks, when it's been reported twice in the newspaper, it's done. He cannot tomorrow, Friday, say, no, they're still wrong.
Right. Here on Tokyo on Fire, we decided a couple of episodes ago that we're not going to talk about a double election anymore because it's just not in the works.
And what does he do? He throws a double election at us.
He's not watching Tokyo on Fire.
He's not listening to us at all. And what the real question for him politically is, what does this mean for his coalition partner,
yes,
the Komeito?
Or even the opposition, who needs to, if they're going to have a double election, they need to get their...
The opposition has had, I rarely compliment the opposition, but the Democratic Party immediately demanded that he delay the imposition of the rise in the consumption tax. You must do this.
Now you have to.
You have to.
Yes.
And great. But the Komeito,
Komeito's in a bit of a bind, aren't they?
They're in a bit of a bind. The Komeito is always in a relationship with the LDP where the LDP is massively more powerful of the two partners. It needs to carve out a little bit from the LDP's otherwise full-blown powers and say, this is the part we were able to cut out. This is what we got for you, our supporters.
Right.
And in this case, what they got as the cutout was for the Komeito to agree to the rise in the consumption tax. The consumption tax has to be split. The 10% rate of consumption tax, which is supposed to go into effect, and now isn't going to, on April of 2017, that is for anything but food.
Right.
Food and some other items, including newspapers, smart politically, get the newspapers on your side, will be taxed at a lower rate. And that's what we got you, supporters of Komeito.
Vote for us.
Vote for us. If he delays the rise and that everything stays at 8%, there's nothing that they got as a cutout. There's nothing that they have done to affect legislation. They've earned nothing by being the allies of the LDP. And that, for Komeito politicians, is really hard to go back to Party Central and also to the support organization, the Sokagakkai, and say, we got nothing.
Right.
That's tough for them.
Well, a lot of things are going to happen in very quick succession if the Prime Minister delays the imposition of the tax, which you predict he will, based on today's newspaper.
If it happens twice, it's done.
And if our prediction of the association of the imposition of the tax and the double election is accurate, he also needs to build up for a double election, or perhaps a staggered election. But in any event, he needs to boost his numbers. The poll figures were released last Sunday. He's looking remarkably good.
I'm thinking that's internally within the LDP. If you were an LDP member and you see that both, despite of all the rancor and upset about the Abe administration's policies, the popularity of the cabinet continues to climb. The DP, since its merger with the JIP, the Japan Innovation Party, the Democratic Party, its numbers have declined. Even though it's supposedly now more unified than ever and has a broader base, it actually has become less popular. If you're a member of the LDP, strike now. We have our supporters outnumber theirs 4-1.
Right.
Let's go for a double election. Let's slaughter them. The pressure on the Prime Minister to dissolve the Diet and call it election is huge.
Okay, if that in fact is the case, then you can anticipate that the President's visit to Hiroshima, and with Abe in tow as well as the host, the G7 summit, a revamping of Abenomics, which is kind of due for a change too. I mean, he's got to front load all of these things within a very brief period of time, 3-4 weeks.
But the thing is, there's a counter narrative, which is if he delays the imposition of the consumption tax, that's a direct admission that Abenomics is completely messed up.
Well, that's why he was looking for a boogie bear, either a big, huge natural disaster or a Lehman shock type of
And he doesn't
situation.
have either, so instead he's gone to Plan B, and Plan B is admit that Plan A didn't work.
Right, or pray that something happens.
Well, who knows what can happen? But the thing is, politically, we have to be realistic. Politically, he's in the catbird seat. He has no problems. The LDP is unified behind him. He has no rivals within the party to speak of that would challenge him. The public opinion polls are all supportive of the LDP. The opposition, even though it's getting unified and put on a good fight in the Hokkaido 5 by-election, but still came up short. It's going to come up short most likely in all of the single-member districts in the House of Councilors election that's coming up. Why not strike? Why not get them? It's going to be very hard for him to say no.
Okay, which tells you that it's just a ripe opportunity for any kind of scandal. I mean, blown out of proportions, whatever. They're looking for anything, the opposition, and Bunshun as well, to electrify the environment and the voters to make this thing a little bit more of a dicey deal.
Well, we'll have to see how this plays out. When this is all, you would like to think that there's some kind of judgment day for the LDP and Abe in terms of everything that they've touched has really crumbled away. You know, Abenomics, this whole idea of fiscal, monetary, and structural reform as electrifying Japan, jump-starting Japan, it's just not going anywhere. And you would think that the public would say, enough's enough. You don't have any more ideas. You're fumbling around. It hasn't worked. No, there has been no judgment. In fact, more people support the Prime Minister. But it's for the weirdest of reasons, and that's the one thing that supports your view. The largest fraction of people supporting the Prime Minister and the government do so not because they like him, but because they can't see any alternative. The moment an alternative raises its head, whatever form, whether it's a rival within the LDP or someone in the opposition,
Hashimoto, whoever. Right.
Okada Katsuya has all the charm of a piece of cardboard. This is, he probably senses that his castle is built on sand. It's a beautiful castle. It's got wonderful turrets and all that. But underneath it all is simply that I can't see anyone else. The moment that voter says, aha, that person has an interesting personality, that person has an interesting point of view, it'll flow away.
Isn't that something of a microcosm, though, of Japanese society in general? I mean, it's very rare to find somebody who is really a sterling, charismatic figure within companies or within sports teams, that sort of thing. And when there is, they kind of get all of the limelight and everybody else kind of follows in line and they wait for their turn.
Yeah, well, in this case, Mr. Abe, again, he's quite mysterious in terms of his leadership skills. Why do people follow him? And again, it's because he's like the banyan tree. Nothing grows beneath him. Nothing is challenging him. He just casts a shade over everything else. But the reason why people support him is not because they like him, but because they don't see an alternative.
Right. Well, I mean, we've talked about it before. He is an adroit politician. He has formed this cabinet, and the cabinet has been towing the line. His chief cabinet secretary is a mastermind at running the political machinery, although he has made his own mistakes, but still.
But the thing is, it's by suppression and depression. You know, don't talk to the press. Don't get people excited about things. Try to suppress voter interest so that they don't show up at the polls, meaning that our machine voters will show up, but the general non-aligned voter, which is the majority of the voters, those people stay away from the polls. Don't make it a clash of ideas. Make it a fight over those who just show up.
Sure. Well, in that kind of scenario, scandal really has a powerful effect of swaying voters or swaying public opinion.
Well, if it can get people into the voting booth. But Mr. Abe right now doesn't have to fear a thing.
So where we stand today, it is May 19th. The consumption tax will be withheld.
It will not rise above 8% at its scheduled date of April 2017. That means that the accounts of Japan will stay significantly imbalanced. That upsets the finance ministry, but who cares about a bunch of bureaucrats anyway?
Right. Well, the GDP was announced today.
And that's another reason.
Right.
The figures were much better. There's the counter. If the figures are turning out better than expected,
don't mess with it.
Don't mess with the tax.
Right.
Don't touch it because the economy is reviving. That narrative, again, did it last a day? It's hard to say. By the time this comes on air, who knows what the general zeitgeist is going to be about this consumption tax and the double election, which we've been talking about for months and months, and every time we say, this is finally done.
Right. We too are interested in the zeitgeist. We're reporting on this continually to keep you up to date. We're going to follow it and let you know what our analysis is. Please stay tuned.